Hello everyone, welcome to the video lecture on non-destructive testing. So before we go into the details of the video, I'd like to thank Mr. Anish Minicheri from Jyoti Engineering College who has provided the necessary materials for making this PPT. Now we move on to, we have discussed already the first two modules in non-destructive testing. We'll be moving on to the third module, which deals with magnetic particle inspection. Magnetic particle testing is also a very prominent method in non-destructive testing. So over the course of the lectures, we'll be going through the principles, the basic physics of magnetism, different terms like permeability, flux density, coercive force, the different methods of magnetism, the techniques such as hot shot technique, cold shot technique, superconductive testing techniques, and also magnetization using yokes. And also we'll be discussing about direct and indirect method of magnetization, continuous testing of MPI, residual technique of MPI, system sensitivity, checking devices, and also the interpretation and of the MPI results, and also the advantages and disadvantages. Now, first, I'm going to introduce you to magnetic particle inspection. In magnetic particle testing, it's actually a relatively simple concept. It actually consists of two different combinations of testing method, mainly magnetic flux leakage testing and visual inspection. Now, the magnetic particle inspection is governed by the laws of magnetism and is therefore restricted to materials that can support a magnetic field. So actually metals can be classified based on their magnetism into three main categories. First one is ferromagnetic material, second one is paramagnetic material, and third one is diamagnetic material. In ferromagnetic materials, these materials are strongly attracted to a magnetic field. They can easily become magnetized. And for example, if you take the case of iron, nickel, and cobalt, all of them are strongly attracted to magnetic field. The second one is paramagnetic metals. They consist of austenitic stainless steels. They are weakly attracted by magnetic forces of attraction and cannot be magnetized. Example, aluminium. And the third category is diamagnetic metals, which have a weak negative susceptibility to magnetic field. They are repelled by a magnetic field and does not retain the properties when external field is removed. So essentially, these are the classifications. So the main limitation of magnetic particle inspection is that the testing materials that we can use, or the materials on which the test can be done, is basically ferromagnetic metals. You can only use ferromagnetic materials as specimens. We cannot use paramagnetic or diamagnetic materials. That is what is being discussed here. The requirement for testing is that the components that are being tested or inspected must be made of a ferromagnetic materials that can be strongly magnetized when an external magnetic field is applied. For example, iron, nickel, cobalt, or their different alloys. Now, they are used to inspect a variety of products such as from castings, forgings, and the most important one is from welded materials. Now, there are many industries that use this technique, such as structural steel materials, industries, automotive industries, petrochemical industries, power generation, as well as aerospace industries. Now, also this is used for underwater inspection also. And the method is very cheap, robust, easy to perform, and can be handled by semi-skilled personnel without requiring as much as protection as that is required for other entity methods. So, actually, what it means, it is one of the safest methods. We'll go into the definitions of magnetism. Now, magnetism is actually the ability of matter to attract other matter to itself. Objects that possess the property of magnetism are said to be magnetic or magnetized, and the magnetic lines of force can be found in and around objects. And also, we have learned all these terms in your basic physics. And a magnetic pole is a point where the magnetic lines of force exits or enters a material. The magnetic field lines, as you all know, forms closed loops, do not cross each other, follows the path of least resistance, all have the same strength, and have a direction such that they cause opposite poles will repel each other, right? And opposite poles will attract each other, and like ones will repel each other. This is actually the magnetic lines of force that are found. Just wait. Okay, so these are the magnetic lines of force that are available here. The magnetic lines of force, like forces, like poles are repelling each other, unlike poles are attracting each other. Now we go on to what is a ferromagnetic material? As we discussed, this testing method is limited only to ferromagnetic materials. The material is considered as ferromagnetic if it can be magnetized. Materials with a significant iron, nickel, or cobalt content can be generally classified as ferromagnetic materials. These ferromagnetic materials, as you can see here, as you can see, the ferromagnetic materials here consist of a number of regions. These regions are called magnetic domains. Before they are magnetized, these domains, magnetic domains, are aligned in different directions. But when you apply an external magnetic field, as you can see here, the magnetic domains will get aligned in a particular direction. So the magnetic domain points randomly in a demagnetized material, but it aligns when an electrical current or an external magnetic field is used to magnetize the material. So the domains get arranged as shown in the figure. Now, how does the inspection work? As we discussed before, it consists of two methods. First one is magnetic flux leakage, and second one is the visual inspection. So what we do here is we choose a ferromagnetic material as shown in the figure, and we apply a magnetic field. The magnetic lines of force, they are actually, since it is a ferromagnetic material, they are strongly attracted by the magnetic field. So what will happen is the magnetic domains will align with each other. So what will happen here is if there is any discontinuity or if there is any crack that is taking place, there will be a flux cutting is taking place. The magnetic lines of force are being cut. So as you can see in other parts, it is forming straight lines, and near to the discontinuity, there is actually a cut. That is, there will be a curved magnetic field lines as shown in the figure. So what will happen is if the magnetic material or the ferromagnetic material is magnetized by a strong magnetic field, the discontinuity will actually interrupt the magnetic field and a leakage will occur. Now, in order to detect this leakage, finely milled iron particles, they are coated with a dye pigment, are also applied to the test specimen. So when these particles falls on the material after it has been magnetized, they form clusters. They are attracted to leakage fields and they'll form clusters. And this clusters helps in identifying the discontinuity. Now, these clusters will actually be visible under proper lighting conditions. This is what is being shown here. When there are no discontinuities, the magnetic field lines are arranged properly. But when there is a discontinuity, there is a flux leakage that is taking place. So when you add magnetic particles here, it will form a cluster. These clusters helps us to detect the presence of discontinuities. Now we move on to the basic terms that are used in magnetism. First one, polarity. In polarity, what we call it is polarity itself. It refers to the orientation of north and south poles according to the Earth's magnetic poles. Magnetic force is the second term. It is a force of attraction or repulsion that one body has on another. These are all the basic terms that you have learned before. Now, magnetic field is the area around a magnet where the magnetic forces are observable and are appreciable. Permeability is the ease with which a material can be magnetized. It is expressed as mu. Mu is equal to B by H, where H is the magnetizing force or external magnetic field that is being applied. B is the magnetic flux density or the magnetic field that is developed by the material due to the external magnetic field. Now, flux density is also defined in a different way. It's also defined as the number of lines of force per unit area. It is measured in Gauss and is represented by the symbol B. This actually represents flux density represents the magnetic field developed by the material. The magnetizing force is again technically defined as the total number of lines making up a magnetic field. This determines the strength of the force of attraction or repulsion that is exerted by the magnet and can be represented by H. Now, these are the different units that you can see here. The units for magnetizing force, for flux density, for flux and magnetization. It's given in SI, Sommerfeld, SI Kennelly system, and also CGS unit system. Now, another term that we come across is actually the retentivity. Retentivity is actually the ability of a coil or a material to retain some of its magnetism when the external field is removed. That is, suppose you are removing the external field. If at all, after removing the external magnetic field, if it again has some magnetism within itself and behaves as a magnet, then we can say that it has a retentivity. Now, Corsi force is another term. It is a measure of the ability of a ferromagnetic material to withstand an external magnetic field without becoming demagnetized. Okay. Now, the third one is actually the reluctance. It is the opposition of a ferromagnetic material shows to the establishment. That is, when you apply a magnetic field, the opposition that the material exerts is called the reluctance. Reluctance is actually analogous to the resistance that is there in an electrical circuit. Now, residual magnetism. It is defined as the amount of magnetism that is left behind after removing the external magnetic field. Residual magnetic field are affected by the permeability, which can be related to the carbon content and alloying of material. It is noted that a component having high carbon content will have low permeability and will retain more magnetic flux than a material with low carbon content. So, higher carbon content materials are more preferred, I think. Now we go on to the term hysteresis. Right, we can this is the hysteresis graph. We have a magnetizing force in the x direction, and when the poles are reversed, magnetizing force is there in the opposite direction, that is represented by minus h. B is the flux density and minus B is the flux density when the poles are reversed. So H represents the external magnetic field that is being applied, and B represents the magnetic field that is being developed. Now, as you can see, it always starts from the origin. Okay, so before you magnetize a material, you're choosing a paramagnetic material. So there is no H applied, so the B value is 0. Now you're applying a magnetizing force. Due to the magnetizing force, the magnetism will be developed inside the material. So flux density will go on increasing. So as H increases, you can see how the laser pointer is moving. As H increases, the value of B also increases, and it goes on increasing and reaches a saturation point. Beyond the saturation point, even if you try to increase the external magnetic field, or if you try to increase H, the flux density will not increase and it will remain the same. So this is why that point is called saturation point. So this saturation point is represented by point A. Okay, now once it has reached point A, what we'll be doing is you have applied the magnetizing force to a particular value, and you have obtained flux density corresponding to that also. Now we'll be trying to decrease the magnetizing force, right? Or we'll be trying to remove the magnetizing force. So the magnetic field is removed all of a sudden. When the magnetic field is removed all of a sudden, you can see the H value. What will happen when you remove all of it? The H value will attain 0, right? So H will become 0. So when H will become 0, what will happen is the material also get demagnetized, right? But as per our discussion, what should have happened? The flux density should have reached a 0 value, right? But since H is 0, you can see here that once the H is reduced to 0, what will happen is the flux density will not go to 0, but as you can see, flux density will reach a point B. So this much from the origin to point B, you have a certain value for flux density. This flux density is what is called the residual magnetism or retentivity of the material. Right? So even if you decrease the magnetizing force and if you remove the magnetizing force, the flux density will always have a non-zero value. It will reach point B. So from the origin to the point B, it represents a flux density or the residual magnetism that is being present. Okay. So this is the residual magnetism. This is one of the most important properties for a paramagnetic material. Now, again, when you're decreasing the magnetizing force, again, that is you are applying the magnet, or you are altering the field, you are altering the poles, and you are applying the field in the opposite direction. So what will happen is the retentivity will again go on decreasing, and at a particular value of minus H, we will reach the point C. The point C is known as coercivity. The coercivity point was also discussed. Coercivity point is actually the amount of magnetizing field required so that the flux density becomes 0. That is the amount of H that is to be applied in the opposite direction so that the flux density reaches a 0 value. As you can see at the value point C, H has a negative value and the flux density is 0. So the amount of external field required to remove the retentivity of a material is known as its coercivity. Now, the coercivity has reached point C. Again, you are increasing H in the negative direction. As you increase the value of H in the negative direction, what happens is the flux density will again go on decreasing in the opposite direction. So instead of B, it is now following minus B. It goes on increasing. So H is in the opposite direction. That is, you are reversing the field. The flux density has also reversed its sign and is going in the opposite direction. It will go on and again reach point D. The point A and point D are opposite points, right? Again, you reach the saturation point. Beyond this, if you increase the value of H in the opposite direction, B will not increase. That is, the flux density will not increase. Now again, at this point, you are again removing the magnetizing field. That is, H will move from the negative point to the zero value. So once you remove the magnetizing field in the opposite direction, again, what will happen? The flux density will also decrease and it will reach point E. This point E is actually the retentivity or residual magnetism in the opposite direction. So here retentivity represents positive flux density. Here it represents E represents the negative flux density. And again, the magnetizing force is increased in the positive direction. So when the magnetizing force is increased in the positive direction, what will happen is the flux density will decrease and will reach the value 0. So the magnetizing force applied, the value from 0 to H is actually the magnetizing force that is to be applied, so that the flux density of the material or the magnetism developed in the material is 0. That is, the value of H that is required to remove the residual magnetism. This is the coercivity in the positive direction. Now it won't go to the origin because because of the residual magnetism, F will not coincide with the origin, but F will remain as such. From this point F, again, if the magnetic force is increased in the positive direction, again this path will be followed. The dotted line will not be followed. The path followed is from F to A, and then again the path follows from A to B, B to C, C to D, D to E, E to F, F to A, and it goes on continuing if H is removed and is applied in the negative direction. This curve is called the hysteresis curve. Now, before finishing the lecture, I'll just introduce the basic procedures of MPI. The basic procedures in magnetic particle testing involves component pre-cleaning, introduction of the magnetic field, application of the magnetic media, and interpretation of magnetic particle indications or the results that you're obtaining. So we'll come to the end of the video lecture here. So in the subsequent video lectures, I'll be detailing the procedures of magnetic particle. Thank you.